Come on, counter straight. Come on, let me hear. Let's get louder. Welcome to Talk Encounter. Come on, let me hear. Let's get louder.
Welcome to Talk Encounter.
And it's not a pumpkin, which is nice.
It's not a pumpkin. I worked really hard to set all this up. I'm actually really proud of myself. This is not my strong suit.
Good.
So, yeah.
What, putting up lights? How many
Yes.
Serbians does it take to change a light bulb? Is there a joke there?
Yeah, a very bad one, I'm sure.
Perfect. Chad, you look like you're playing a game.
Is this live?
Yeah, this is
All right,
live.
I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure. We had, there was a couple of tests.
Did it feel like there was an official tone change?
Not particularly.
Okay.
I don't know if that's your fault. I am laser focused on spreadsheets right now, trying to work out let me give you an example. I've culled most of these here, but like for example, where was I when I spent, or was I in Malta when I spent $200 at El Gonella restaurant on the 1st of October 2023?
Gonorrhea restaurant?
Yeah, it's like next to Sciatica Grill, Janko. So, there's a couple of good ones down there. But,
Same owner, I guess.
Yeah. I'm just going through, and like, was I here? Did I do this? And if I didn't, I got to delete it.
Why don't you have a person that does this for you?
Well, nobody really knows where I was other than me, and I don't even really know where I was. Like, I was going through this, and I was having a look, and I was like, wait, hold up a second. Why, when I search like this thing here, it says W Bellevue? Like, isn't that where the Valve office is? And I'm like, oh yeah, early 2023, we went to the Valve. Wait, hold up. I was in London for a period of time. What the fuck was I doing? I flew through London. I'm remembering all the things that happened.
You went to the Valve office again, Chad? So
No,
you're the one who suggested the charms?
We're doing the 2023 right now, Janko. The 2024, mate. I know we're almost over with 2024,
Also,
but fuck it now.
You know what's an easy way to tell that we're live, that we're recording? Jason just starts smiling. He doesn't smile until we go live.
He's got the Mr. Beast dead behind the eyes.
Yeah, I've got to put the mask on, I've got to have a whole persona that I put out to the world.
So many masked people in esports.
All smiles.
Jason, did we really bully you that much in the last episode that you're not using the picture anymore?
No, the picture's in the basement still. I have a guy from the irrigation company at the house, and he's blowing out the whole sprinkler system that I've got. So the piping in the basement in my studio is very loud. It's very loud. That's the extent of that. Yeah. No, the picture will make an appearance again. Don't worry.
The O'Toole mansion needing a little bit of
renovation,
renovation, tidying up.
We've had a lot of construction here recently. We've finished the master bathroom. We've finished the egress window in the basement. Now we're just winterizing the pipes, as you all know.
I wish I
Winterizing
did
the pipes.
things, man.
Sounds like a euphemism.
I wish I did things. It sounds so exciting doing things. Like, just normal things. I want to do normal things, guys. I think 2024 is going to be the year I do a normal thing.
Chad, if you want next
This
year...
is 2024.
2025.
We were just talking about 2023. That's why I lost a year, man. Yeah. I'm never getting it back.
2025, Chad. Come out to the house.
Wait, you want me to do free labor for you?
Yeah, a week earlier, and I can have a whole list of regular things that you can do. I put out 37 bags of leaves yesterday outside my house to get picked up today.
You can summarize his pipes if he's winterizing it now.
I hate that, but I also kind of like it a little bit.
You can spring his pipe.
It was actually pretty good, but I hate it. Yeah. It's not a bad find in the middle of nowhere from Janko.
Considering where that's come from, he's given it a good crack.
Yeah.
You know what has actually manifested? That was actually funny, Janko. I'm struggling. Hold up. I don't know how much I can say here without revealing something. All I'm going to say is that next year, Rush is going to come and visit me in Perth.
Okay.
You wouldn't believe it. Yeah, I've never.
Yeah.
Like,
I was wondering
Ranger.
where you were going with this, but
the guy who used to come on this podcast sometimes.
I feel like it's hard to get Rush to go from Cologne to Katowice.
Exactly.
Like, Perth is a very, very invested trip.
Yes, exactly. I'm very impressed to see it as a possibility.
So he is quitting his job at ESL to become a zookeeper at Steve Irwin's place? Is that what you're saying?
He's
yes,
only working on
yeah.
the stingrays though, so it's gonna be fun.
So he can
Oh,
actually, instead of metaphorical snakes, pet real snakes. They can't all be hits, guys. They can't all be
Dude.
hits. I got a little bit too
I
excited.
thought, yeah,
by
maybe
having
give it
one
some
good
breathing
one.
room.
Right? Yeah, I'm trying too hard. I'm trying.
It's fine.
too
It is.
hard.
It's 3:30 in the afternoon. G2 have had a win. Janko's he's high off of success right
Yo,
now.
G2 had a win after starting on a 0-13.
It doesn't matter
It's
though.
not how you
That's
start,
so
Jason.
crazy.
It's not
That's
how
so
you start,
crazy.
Jason. It's how you finish. G2 is the content team, right? Don't wanna pump out all that content. How much better it is, they're 13-0. Everyone's hating on them. Oh, these guys suck. What, you can't win one T-side round after a boot camp? What the fuck are you doing? You're all incompetent. Get this team the fuck out. When is Nico gonna go to Falcons? And then all of a sudden, boom. Now we go to our map pick. Mirage is the third map. We used to permaban this map. Not anymore.
Listen to
Flawless
you saying
T-side,
we like some
2-1.
fucking hot mess of a fan. We used to ban Mirage.
That's
We
only half true.
Used to play Vertigo. Like, what the fuck are you doing over there?
Aggressive, of course.
Jason, hello.
I do hate the fact that you couldn't watch the actual game, so I had no idea what happened. I just saw the score, obviously, but what can you do?
Yeah, what can you do? Well, the games run early, right? There's the Astralis Navi game that I think it was a little bit
I
delayed.
think it started at 2 a.m. Eastern as well, those games.
It's meant to be
something like that.
7 a.m. here in Europe, right? So still pretty early everywhere. But that's Singapore's on the same time zone as what China is going to be for the major.
Sentosa.
So. Yes, indeed. So, there are going to be early games. But Liquid picked Ancient, and then G2 went, we'll start T-side so we can set the tone, and then didn't get a single round. It's like off of their own choice on Ancient. They started on the weaker side, which, we can all make sense of that choice in the veto, but the fact it backfires that badly is a fucking... Oof. That one hurts. But then, I agree. The fact they win the series, who cares? But these teams love having blowouts against each other. Jason's still
They really
worried
do.
about Liquid. He can't believe it.
I mean, I can believe it, but I am
Did you
still
watch the
worried
game
about
at all,
them.
Jason? Did you catch it?
He
No,
was
not
getting his
really.
back
Not
doors
in
blown out.
any.
Or his
yeah.
irrigation. I forget which one it was.
Getting the plumbing worked on, the deep clean.
You were getting your yard blown out while Liquid was getting blown out on the server.
Damn straight.
Yeah. I woke up at the end of the 13-0, and then I had baby stuff to handle for breakfast in the morning and all that jazz. So I didn't really.
You were
watch any of the
feeling
games.
so high. You were feeling so good.
I was like, I don't even need to watch these games. Yeah.
Liquid's got this.
Hey,
Shit all over G2.
let's get some.
You fed the baby. You checked the score. What the fuck? 13-6,
Yeah.
13-6.
We're
Nico
eating
fucked
eggs
my
this
boys
morning.
up.
We're
Yeah.
eating good today.
Surprise,
yeah.
surprise, motherfucker.
Yeah, it was brutal. But I mean, I don't know. I can't really speak without having seen the game about anything tactically, which was always a concern. But Ultimate had another pretty stinker just statistically. Again, I don't know what happened in the actual game itself, but 19 kills, 32 deaths. That's not great out of Ultimate. So, still working on getting him back in shape, I guess.
What about the Astralis beating Navi 2-0? What the fuck happened there? How did they beat them on Mirage 13-6?
That's a really good question. I didn't watch that game either. That was the game before I even woke up.
Maybe we shouldn't focus too much
Maybe
on
we
this
shouldn't
game
go into details.
when none
But
of us have.
I will
seen-
say, it was funny as fuck waking up on HLTV and having the headline say it was like something from Blade, like, oh, if we win this event too, that is probably just way too much confidence for this team to handle. So funny, because like, what a fucking luxury to have as a coach. And then it was like, don't even worry about that because Astralis is going to give you the fucking dick today. And then you don't have to
Jesus.
worry about that confidence.
Blade-
But also this whole Astralis thing though, like, I don't know. I fucking... There's an interview from Cadian before the game. The best version of Astralis is not going to happen in 2024. Device after the win. This is a really good indication of what we can do. Can we not like overhype ourselves after one game? Because it's not like we were going out there in the interviews when we lost and being like, we're dog shit, you know?
I
you
see
know
what you're
what's the-
saying.
What I don't get is like, how does Astralis even have enough points for World Finals? That's like what surprised me.
Don't you just have to do well at the group stages, right? Which they were always going to be at. Isn't that how it works? You just have to have a good enough performance at those two.
Yeah, now I'm looking. I found the leaderboard actually, and
I think it's the winners. Isn't it like the winners of Katowice, Cologne, one wild card, and then the other ones are all by points on how you did during the blast
there is,
circuit?
but they got like 8. The most points from the 2 group stages. Like Chad is
Okay,
right.
so they had really good group stages. So like the new big clan.
Because they were second both times that they made it straight into the finals, and apparently like that's enough. VP was close. VP missed out on the 8th spot by 25 points to Team Liquid. That's mental. And then Falcons were like 400 points behind.
I always was a little bit remiss with the way the blast stuff worked because OG kept like making it through off of just having those group stage performances, right? So
Oh yeah, it was OG.
a lot of the time I never really was like too high on the things that were happening there. But like this time around, the field is really good. And I think I know we're straight into the Counter-Strike chat, but this is one of the things with this event where it's hard. It's another one of these hard ones to gauge. And I hate saying that because I feel like I'm fucking saying it all the time. But it's placement again and the type of teams that are in attendance. These are the same type of names that you think are going to be the ones contending for the major trophy in a couple of weeks' time. So when you have an event like this and you're matching up against the same guys that you're having to beat, sure, you got to get past a lot more opponents. And sure, you go into every game like wanting to win and do your best, but what's really on like display? And for certain teams, it means different things as well. Like Astralis are looking for good results. FaZe, they keep having these poor performances and they're looking for like a solid to renew the confidence. Liquid's looking to have that breakthrough win and be like, yeah, we can beat the top 5. G2 looking to bounce back from Rio.
Well, this is technically Astralis' major, right? They're not going to be in Shanghai.
Oh shit!
Isn't that correct?
Did they not
Oh
qualify?
no, they
for
are.
the
They're in
RMR?
the RMR. It's Falcons who didn't qualify for the RMR.
I was
I
gonna
still
say,
They did.
Did-
Falcons are the RMR.
Who's the fucking team that I'm thinking of then?
Ants.
Ents didn't make
Ents.
it.
Shit. I thought
Cool,
Astralis
Jason?
didn't make it again. Yeah, I thought Astralis didn't make it. I was going to make a joke, but here we are.
Now
Life comes at you
I'm
fast.
doubting everything I know about the world right now off the back of that.
Astralis is in Group B. Falcons
Group
is in
B, yeah,
A.
I see it now. Yeah. Fuck, I thought there was like a big team that didn't even make it, but yeah, I guess it was Ents. Continue. My apologies.
No, I was just kind of saying that when you think about these things, or at least when I think about these things, those are the topics that come to mind, right? And weighing it up of the major's the most important thing, so getting through the RMR is really important. But this event, I guess, is there a team here who you think needs the win the most?
I would say.
I'd say Spirit.
Spirit need to win the most.
Yes.
Okay.
Or it would help them the most. And yeah, they needed the most. Spirit and Mouse. Well,
I
and
would say-
FaZe, but FaZe is like, because they're very unlikely to win, but it would be tremendous for FaZe if they could win. I think for Spirit, mostly because we heard the Donk interview as well, that they are much more confident now. They felt they had a really good month of practicing, gaining confidence, right, getting back on the same page. They just won the first map against Vitality. They picked Anubis, which is interesting. Vitality with a stand-in, okay. But for them, it would mean a lot because all of a sudden, Spirit, if they've had a month to bootcamp practice, like they've added new things, and then they win a tournament right before the RMR, their confidence is going to be really high just before the RMR, which is obviously how you want it to be. Mouse on the other side, right? Another sort of step up for them to take.
I honestly think the Mouse one. I feel like sharks are circling around that team. I feel like they did like I don't know, like all the rumors
Falcons.
about. Yeah, Falcons. Yeah, whatever shark you want to mention. Falcons, Vitality is rumored to be going after
Unicorns,
Yimpad.
bees.
Like, I think just for this team to like kind of like maintain some cohesion, I have to imagine this would be a huge win to get. And then obviously the major performance is going to be pretty critical as well. But it feels like Mouse is on the verge of just getting torn apart.
I would kind of agree, like that there's a possibility for the Mouse to be poached, right? But it has to be one domino that falls first, I think. Like, I don't think you're taking more than 2 of those players, right? Like in one for one team, right? You're not taking a core or anything, so you're just taking pieces. So it's about what other teams disenfranchised with their results at the tail end of the year that are enticing and looking to make changes, right? Because I think there's a few teams that they could all go to where they would find comparable success but more money. And I think that's probably, what you'd be looking for.
The problem for Mouse for me is I don't know how much these players rate the environment in which they're in, right? Because whenever we hear them in interviews, oh, I love this guy, oh, I love that guy, these guys are the best, we're best friends, brothers, it's so much fun, we want to do it for each other, all that stuff. Like how much value do you put on that if you're Jimmy, if you're Exertion, if you're whoever, which player on that team, compared to, okay, Vitality comes in, they offer me 50% more money or double the salary. I don't know what their salaries are in Mouse, right? And I go to this team and I get a chance to play with Zaiwu or play with Nico on Falcons or play with Twists on Liquid, whichever, or play with Kerrigan on FaZe, whatever it is. Like, are you willing... Is that enough for you to separate yourself from that environment? Like, or do you really value what you have in Mouse and you want to stick playing with the guys and just sort of, okay, maybe you get a little bit more money from Mouse, maybe not, but you're sort of banking on, we're going to start winning tournaments with this group, and then it won't really, that's way better than going to another team and having so-and-so success here and there, and just for the higher paycheck or whatever.
I mean, I think Mouse as an org, and like I know Cyclone pumps that kind of a philosophy pretty hardcore, like the state of the unit, as like the relationship of the players and the relationship with the team and prioritizing that. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much the players individually might rate it and how important it is to their own performance, but I mean, it's definitely being pumped into their brains. And I think all those guys coming up from the Academy League, at least 3 of them together, like
pumped into their brains. Is he like MK ultraing them into, friendship above all? Like,
yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Psy-op.
But I mean, that's just the philosophy that I know that coaching staff and management staff have. Like he's mentioned it during interviews and mentioned it during the coaches podcast I did with them. So, I mean, I know that the players are being made to think of that as an important aspect to the team. I just don't know how much actual stock they would put in it. But regardless, I mean, if you get a chance to make 1.5 times as much money and play with Zaiwu, like, come on, like you probably need to take that opportunity.
Yeah, I think this is I guess this is the same problem that they're kind of having, right? Is what is even the landscape going to look like after the major? Do you guys feel like it's enough turnaround time from like when the major, I guess most of the roster changes? How many of the roster changes do you expect would already be in motion by the time the grand final trophy has been lifted at the major? Because at that point, there's only 2 teams left in the whole event, right? So obviously, as each day gets dropped off, there's fewer and fewer teams, or more and more teams.
90%.
You reckon 90% of them would be done by that point? Or at least in motion?
Not done, in motion.
Yeah, like the teams would be set on which changes they want to make.
Yeah, and then it's just about, are they able to get the players that they want? Like, are they able to have those negotiations be successful?
Yeah.
I would say...
Perhaps even earlier. I mean,
That
playoff
sucks,
start,
though, isn't it? Well, I guess for some of them, yeah. But not for the big names, unless it's a shit major.
Unless it's a shit major. I think there's always, I think as soon as that major begins, there's always wheeling and dealing going on. Those fucking GMs have to always be like pursuing something, don't they?
Do you reckon it's still a lot coming from behind the scenes? Because I think there's some which are probably more player driven, like FaZe, for example, would be staff driven as opposed to like org driven, right? Liquid's
player driven. I think still like Twist has the big heavy hand, even though like the work is done on the back end by Steve. But yeah, I mean, obviously Astralis is pretty org driven instead of player driven.
Mouse is like the coach makes some big decisions over there, right? So I guess we would lean that in the more org driven perspective. Vitality was before when like Zonic decided to make changes, right? But then Zonic's gone, so now it's Xtaz. I wonder if Xtaz has the same authority as what Zonic did with being able to make those choices.
Well, he was the one who kind of, I don't want to say like forced out or pushed out, use the wrong vocab, but he was the one who kind of made the decision to let Alexi go, wasn't he? With G2? Oh, shit. Fucking, I'm not okay today.
Him and Niak, what?
But
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
but I
great
was
stuff.
I was talking about the vitality side of things when
Well, you love talking about G2. We can talk more about G2.
I know,
Jason.
no, I don't want to talk more about G2. I
Is
want
this
you
guy
guys-
fucking up your leaves, Jason, outside? Like, is that what's bothering you?
No,
Is he
this is
doing it
just
wrong?
like a blank, distant stare because I'm just disappointed a little bit.
What did you disappoint me?
He's gone already. The irrigation guy's gone.
So you can move back downstairs, is what you're saying.
I would imagine. Yeah, you guys want to just hit pause really quick, and I'll be right back.
Yeah, let's do it.
I have to imagine that he would have the ability to make some roster changes and have like some level of influence. I think the question is always where's like the sliding scale, right? Like is there any coach that has just 100% I want to do this and it happens? Maybe Blade.
I reckon Blade.
I don't think anyone has 100% in term because the
Well, it
org
affects
has
other
to still
pieces.
make it happen, right? But you can say that a coach has a heavy influence
yeah.
on what happens. I would say that's still Zonic in Falcons, Blade in Navi. I think. Well, I don't know. I think optimally how it should function is right. The organization, there's like a general manager, right, and he's in charge of putting the pieces together, figuring out the salaries, the budget, all of that, right? And it should be someone who understands Counter-Strike and actually more so understands how to team build and have a vision for what the team should look like. How do you start building a team, right? Most of the time you would try and get an in-game leader, coach, pair some of those key pieces together, and then you see, okay, what they're like, and try to add the pieces around them that fit, right? And not just good players that maybe don't fit culturally or attitude-wise or whatever it may be, So you start with that, and then you get a coach who is a level under you. He's in charge of the team, the players, the setting up the game, the foundation. In-game leader is supposed to execute that, add some ideas of his own. They need to be on the same page. That dynamic needs to be great. So then when you want to make changes, it's like the GM is constantly getting feedback from the coach for the most part. And then perhaps with some of the players, you tap into the star player, or your in-game leader, and you see, hey, just have meetings every now and then, see maybe what their opinion is about the whole situation, gather information before you decide whether you want to make a change. Is a roster change necessary? Do you need to change roles? Do you need to maybe incentivize the players a little bit more, motivate them in some way, right? What the thought process is. And then, with all of that, you go into the market and look, okay, we need to change our anchor. What are the anchors available? Do we need a veteran player? Do we want someone younger who is more
Are you saying
hungry?
this is what they do or what they should do?
Should do.
Okay,
This
because I was
is
going to
not-
say I don't
I
know.
feel like this
I
is
don't know
not what
how
happens.
many are doing that, right? Like I think a lot of it is like, oh shit, like we need a new this, and then someone just fucking pulls something out of their ass and they have a couple conversations and.
Well, it also depends on as you said, the team, because like some teams that are still player driven are sometimes like the conversation is, yo, we should get this guy, and then that kind of idea is planted and the players kind of bounce it about in their head in the hotel rooms on their own before it even makes to coach and management, and then they come in and they say, we want this guy instead of this guy, and that's how some roster changes happen too. It's a crazy little fucking wild west we got out there. Speaking of which, NBK is back on the market. You guys excited?
I saw that.
Yeah,
as
I am
like
super
a restricted
excited.
free agent.
But
or something.
I think this is actually a good moment
Okay.
to
How did you guys getting
segue.
jacked up? All right.
I think this is a good moment to segue into that HLTV article from Nero about why we're still waiting for Counter-Strike's data.
Did you read this one,
Revolution.
Jason?
I did. Not all the way through, but I have read it. Some
Okay.
of it, most of it,
All
50%
right.
of it.
No, that's fine. Because like me, I read everything like with a fine tooth comb.
With like a hawk, really.
Yeah.
I read it as well, and it ties into this player evaluation, and guys like Ash from Gamer Legion were talking about how him and the assistant coach actually use those stats first to narrow down the list of players. Used a great example.
That's for Flamus, right?
For Flamus, yeah, where it's like they saw that his opening attempts against Eco on T side were pretty low, but then in gun rounds, they were higher, and that his stats in gun rounds were actually like correlating with what they were looking for in a player. So then they, obviously looked into him in more detail, watched his demos, and were like, okay, this guy passes the eye test as well, and that's how they made the the decision. I just want to open up with saying two things. I think you will always need the eye test. Like, okay, stats, and even when you get advanced specific stats, that's all cool, but I think you'll always need the eye test, and that ties into the second thing. The reason for that is why you can't compare Counter-Strike to any sport in terms of anything, really, because there's one thing in Counter-Strike that doesn't exist in sports, and that's the fog of war, right? Like, you start the rounds with imperfect information. You don't see where the opponents are. You don't know what's going on necessarily. You're just sort of constantly predicting, like you're constantly anticipating based off of patterns, tendencies, whatever it is, just game sense, knowing how it is that the teams open up and playing how a map is played, right? So that's why if you tell me even the advance, oh yeah, this team uses this smoke in this execute, or they finish on this side, after default 50% of the rounds or whatever it is, that happens due to maybe different things going on in the server, right? Like, without looking at it and knowing why they made the decision, it could be some small thing where a guy on the opposite side used the smoke, and then you're like, okay, we'll go to the other side because whatever, right? I think that's the reason, because there was a lot of comparisons to basketball or whatever it may be. I think it's just one problem that will always be, Counter-Strike will always be more difficult than sports, is this reason, like the imperfect information you're dealing with, and you always have to make the decisions, sort of in the dark. Sure, of course, you play a strong default, you take map control, all of a sudden the map is not as dark anymore. You pieced it together, and good use of utility, whatever. But there's always going to be that element where it's going to be hard to just use raw data and stats and whatever it is to sort of really rely on it 100%.
I don't. That's the thing, right? I think most people would have the agreement in the sentiment that you wouldn't just believe the stats like 100%, right? Because what actually happens in every situation is so nuanced. I think in terms of output of players in certain areas of the game, if it's being played at a decent enough level, is an exciting lead, right? To see those type of figures that you're looking for and how they compare, and then being able to witness, okay, well, what is the level of Counter-Strike that this player is playing against? And are they going about this in a way that can be replicated, right? Or is it just really out of the box stuff? I think on the more macro scale of things, though, I think the game is more systematic than ever, right? That's why, I think that probably plays into a little bit of your belief of, having strong players can be in-game leaders because of the way that you can piece together the game now, right? The general knowledge base is a lot higher. Across the board, players have a better understanding of, if this happens, this is what our reaction should be, and this is the three options that we can pick from. And I think that right there, and that evolution will continue, which will play into the stats more and more so of why people are making certain reactions or what strats they fall back on. But I agree with your sentiment about little things, the details of actually watching the game is what changes the outcome. But I guess that's what teams are doing, right? Is looking at big enough sample size to make educated reads. That's what.
Also, I mean, the stats thing is just what makes it so important is just the time saving aspect of it. You obviously still have to rely on the eye test, but just being able to filter rounds down. I know that article talks a lot about Skybox, and it was one thing I told them when I've worked with them is, especially when I was coaching, I was like, I need filters to be able to just take bullshit away. I need to be able to filter things so that the stats and information I get are exactly what I want to look at. Otherwise, if I go into a demo and I want to just watch every single gun round, I've got to skip through and make sure that everything is there. But if I have the stats that can filter it down, it just gives you that narrow viewpoint on exactly what you want to look at. And I think that's kind of the key. You're always going to have that eye test to it. But the stats can help you look the ability, as we've all said a number of times, the ability to just take out eco rounds of an equation is fucking sweet. Just right there already. That's huge. And I think that's where stats help when you're looking at new players and roster changes more than anything, is being able to just get to exactly what you want to see from this guy.
Yeah, I think definitely, the time saving. And I think absolutely there's room for better stats. Like what is being talked about in the article is like really advanced stuff, not even just, what I mentioned a couple of times, just having economy filtered stats for starters, right? I mean, that would be very helpful. But something that was really impressive to me was this part about EG, where they're talking about how they had sort of a number. They were able to quantify communication in terms of stats, and when they were analyzing like their players or analyzing their games, right? They had sort of a quantifier where it's like, okay, are you over communicating or are you under communicating based off of what's happening on your side of the map, right? Like they had a way to quantify that and say to the player, hey, like you should have been saying more here. You should have been giving more information, right? Like you were lacking in this department, or you're talking too much. Like for what's going on, like you're talking too much. You're crowding the team speak or whatever it is, which I thought was like really, really cool. I've never heard of anyone being able to do that or doing anything remotely like that, where they were able to quantify communication and use it sort of as a stat or whatever, just being able to show it as data and in terms of evaluating players and just practice.
I'm always curious though, like how much of an impact this kind of stuff can actually have at the end of the day. Like I'm always like very, very curious with Counter-Strike. Like I feel like traditional sports, for whatever reason, have just been grinded in so much repetition, but there's still ways that the game changes. I'm like really curious in Counter-Strike if it would ever be like super beholden to stats the way like a baseball was. Because I don't personally think it would be. I think it's a little bit too chaotic and crazy, and too many individual decisions that have too many variables to them. But I don't know. When I look at like some of the things, like when I was I think it was Valens as well, but there was some team at NA back in like 2020-ish that had their own private like data analyst who had the stats of where in a bomb site a player was the most successful, like did the most damage to his opponent or got the most kills. So like if you had like an overview, like a bird's eye view of B bomb site on Inferno, it would tell you new box, he averages like 76 damage to his opponent. Like Emo, he does 52 damage to his opponent. Second oranges, he does like 58. First oranges, he does like 30. Like it tells you exactly which spots they're very strong in the bomb sites that they're playing. So I always thought that would be a cool way to like go into a game and tailor make an execution and be like, these guys fucking suck if we can force them to like first oranges and like behind the fountain. Like let's make sure we have an execute where these are the priorities for utility when we go up against this team at this bomb site. But I always wonder like how much that actually on a game day is in the minds of players and teams, because I can't imagine it's that much.
I think like that's one of the problems with like heavy anti-strat, right? Is because you're studying the opponent and you're trying to identify weak points that you can exploit within the game. But then if those weak points that you've identified that you're trying to take advantage of, you're getting offered something different within the server, it can really throw it off, because like you feel like your anti is worthless and you can't trust the things that you've watched within the demo. I remember we did it with Gambit on Train, and I remember like Aaron spent so much time watching the way that they take pop dog control. We looked at like the way that they would crunch Ivy, and then they took pop dog completely differently. Like he was getting harassed heaps more from like team
and
in,
then
and his whole game was thrown off, right? And he's like, oh, I'm just gonna, and it makes you go, I'm just gonna play my own game type thing. And then I think finding the balance of how and when to use this information is the key. But I do agree that there's a potential that you are wasting energy on this if you're using it at the wrong times. Like, is this a type of stuff you just want to talk to your players about, when you're preparing for the match the night before, and then reminding them in between games and stuff of the little details to look out for? And then also, how do you make sure that you convey that information? Like, hey, these are cause for concern, but obviously not the only thing these guys can do, right? So how are you going to factor that in and look to exploit that within a game? And I think that's probably different per how every team addresses the game, right? Like, it has to.
Yeah, I think players and teams are much better at just playing together a lot more. For example, we had this thing where we started looking at anchors a little bit more, CT anchors, right, and how they play mid to late round potentially, or if a player late round on Dust 2 plays, the long player plays pit a lot in the late round, and something that it's easy to finish around then is just do an A split with 3 players going out long. Like you take Cat, you put some pressure Cat, and 3 guys just go out long. He probably won't have help there because of the Cat pressure. He'll be isolated. He has to be really lucky to get more than 1 kill in that position. And even if he gets a kill and dinks 1 more guy, you being stuck on ramp and in that area while being split on A, you're going to get those kills if you're on the T side, right? But you're seeing obviously people catch up to it. That's why if a guy is there, there's a second player that's with him. Maybe they're leaving Cat altogether, they're playing there, or the long player plays close behind the door or something where he can, guarantee multi-kills or at least get some information early, right? Whatever it may be. Also, the A players are better at blocking, playing close to the Cat smoke, whatever it may be. So you can use it at times to target players who have tendencies. I think definitely, teams playing against G2 when Nexa was there, they had T-side. Their T-side sometimes would be, or when they would go A on Inferno, they knew he was going to be pit 80% of the times. And the other 20% he's going to be on Balk. And that's it. And there was never a second player on that side playing headshot. The Hunter or whoever else is going to be in sight. And you can just, whenever you go A, you can bank on that. And anytime you can sort of know for sure where a player is going to be, or there's a high tendency he's going to be somewhere, you can always come up with stuff and just game plan around that.
I'm just trying to think of like some recent examples of what I've seen in live matches. Like this has been happening for a while now, but you see, I forget the 2 teams, and this could have even been at Alyssa Masters or something along those lines. But teams, when they do the top cat smoke on Mirage and they try and path, instead of going behind the box top mid, they path in front of that box, right? And there was a team that I was watching, and they were countering that. They see the smoke come, and they go, okay, we know that they're going to path in front of this. So they would play on the mid-ramp just looking for that swing. But then there's the next step. They've gone, okay, well, we're actually going to path behind the box with a flash. So then they're catching them on a wider angle, and then the T's getting the kill on the CTs looking for, a different fight. And it's like, that's such an isolated thing. But that's, I guess it's easier looking for this stuff when you're looking for opening kills, right? Like, ways that the T's take map control. CTs can take a look at, what timing does he throw his underpass flash, or, is he on his own here when they're doing
You have a
this type
few
of
more
map pressure?
concrete details, right? If you
Sure.
do it early as the opening contact.
Yeah, and like how can you disrupt and slow down some of their map progression? Because some teams, once they get this space, then the other side of the map will start reacting in certain scenarios, right?
I think there's also 2 more issues with this, article talking about stats. First of all is, you use basketball stats as an example. A team has an average of 100 possessions per game, right? So it's a game of volume and big numbers, right? Like over 100 possessions, how are you going to maximize efficiency, right? It's this way, and then it adds up to something that's a difference maker in a basketball game. Like in Counter-Strike, you might have in a half, if you're really unlucky, 4 gun rounds, right? 4, 5 gun rounds, depending on how things happen. Sure, it can be more, but it's definitely fewer than 10 and more than 4, right? Like something along those lines. So it's a question of how much of that, like Chad gave an example that's a bit rudiment in terms of it was way back when, teams wouldn't do that nowadays, but just imagine like you're planning for something based off of it, the team changes it, right? And then your whole game plan, which is a couple of rounds, becomes a little bit obsolete, and you have to adjust on the fly. That's why I don't think it's as, the payoff isn't there as much in Counter-Strike. And the second thing is, you're watching these, even if you watch the games, like you don't even use stats. Like let's say you manually go over the last 10 games of FaZe on Nuke, right? And you're saying like, okay, so Brokey, when like this happens and like he has this like tendency sort of, and then if you were on FaZe, like he just does stuff.
Sure.
Like,
why is he doing this?
Another point is like,
intuition.
you'd be surprised how many times, these players are like, there's not a reason for it. It can be intuition, or sometimes they just decide to do it for no particular reason, right? Maybe he did something else for 2 prior rounds. Like the last 2 times he was in this situation, he made one sort of a move. Now he's going to go for a different one, like without even thinking about it. So some of these decisions are like split second, instinctive and whatnot, where it's sort of, it's hard to correlate them with something else.
Or you can easily mistakenly correlate it with something else, like
Yeah.
the caster syndrome of being like, "Oh, the player is so smart. He knew that gap was going to be in that smoke, and he just hard cleared it. Like he threw that smoke with the intention of the gap." That, you know, you can make up all the excuses for that kind of stuff. I thought it was a cool article overall. I just stats are always an interesting thing in Counter-Strike because it feels like we don't have access to nearly as many as we should.
I don't want to come off the wrong way about it, because maybe it sounded even in my tweet that I was going to like rip apart the article or anything. I thought it was really cool as well. I think definitely there's a place for stats, and not a small one, in Counter-Strike, whether in the broadcast as well, in, you know, part of a team. I think Jason's point was great. A lot of it is just time saving, like, so you don't have to parse through things and spend so much time watching the demos and all of that stuff. Stats can help you narrow stuff down. And then the last thing that was really cool was the advanced stats part is really interesting to me. I said the EG thing kind of blew me away a little bit. That's really cool to help you, because we all know Counter-Strike is more than just shooting, right? And winning duels, you know? So if you can find stats or that could, the reason why it's cool to me is like, it makes it easier for you to talk to the player and show him, you know, and teach him some things, right? And it makes progression and improvement easier and faster. That's why it's really cool, basically. So, yeah, I think it was really interesting. Hopefully, we can get some of these things implemented sooner rather than later. The economy filter more than anything else, because I think we talked about this before. It really, like, so much stuff revolves around stats, a lot of conversation, you know, and talking about players and how good a player is and all of that stuff. And I don't think we're evaluating players properly in that sense, and we don't have the correct stats, and they have a big influence.
Well, I think now you have all the other websites as well popping up doing like stats of their own, and they're all looking for like really cool numbers they can spit out for you that are going to take you away from HLTV, right? Like Leadify has their own ranking system and their own stats they give you. Skybox is obviously going to start doing that. So, and I think too, there's just tons more stats that HLTV doesn't give us. I think if you go into the demo file, right, like there's way more stuff you can grab. So, yeah, as soon as people start getting their hands on it on a deeper level, I think we'll start seeing things come cranking out.
Can I ask? I'm going to step back like not
10
just like
steps?
2 steps. Yeah, probably closer to 10 steps, or maybe even a country mile. What's the human obsession with numbers? Like, I know this is like what
Well,
what
I don't
are
think-
we,
I don't
what's,
think
what's
it's
the
a-
goal? What's the
I don't
search?
think it's
What's
the
the
obsession
purpose?
I don't think it's the obsession with numbers. It's just obsession with explaining stuff and phenomenons. You know, it's more about like why, and numbers help you answer that sometimes.
Oh,
Fair
he's done
enough.
nothing for you there.
No, he's done nothing, which is fine. You know,
He's
we're
done
not always
Absolutely
expecting,
nothing for you.
not expecting any wild revelations. It's just like if we think that the eye test is more important than stats, right? Which I think most sane people do. Also, the enjoyment is during the actual watching and absorbing of said game, as opposed to reading the numbers afterwards. So, you know, I just think, Jason, death with all numbers. Let's kill them all. Let's kill all the numbers.
Well, unfortunately, Chad, I don't think many people can watch every single game of Counter-Strike all the time.
Well,
like
what are
you
they
can.
doing, Janko? Why aren't they dedicating all of their time?
They're wasting their lives away. I agree with you. I'm on the
fucking
same page.
insane.
Also,
man.
if you kill numbers, you destroy the ones and zeros that made up this entire electronic world that allows us to play esports.
Yeah, but obviously things
Okay,
stay as
Morpheus.
they are now, Jason.
How you like them apples?
We don't completely take everything back that we've done. You know, the world stays a little bit like it is.
No, I think the eye test is important, but I think numbers do.
No, I don't know.
Number-
I'm not
I know-
anti-stats or anything. I'm just like curious why.
No,
like,
it
it's
is-
such
it
a
is-
big thing.
Anti-stat tight.
Fucking hell.
It is the nature of numbers, right? Where like you can use them to abuse whatever idea you have, or you can use them in a kind of response. Like you can change numbers or use whatever number you want to like indicate anything.
Jason,
you can manipulate
that's
them pretty
financial
fucking
fraud.
hardcore.
If you change the numbers around, the
But
IRS
this is what I'm
come
saying.
after it.
It can be as valuable or not valuable as you make it to be, depending on how you want to actually use them. If you come into it with like the idea that you want to find a specific outcome, you can find whatever numbers you want to support that. If you want to go in and you actually just want to discover what the end goal is or what the end is, I think you can probably use numbers really well. As that pertains to Counter-Strike, I don't know. I've kind of lost track of the entire Counter-Strike thread to that statement. Janko,
Nice,
bring us
Jason.
back.
I'll tell you the only stat that matters, Chad, is the win-loss column.
Yeah, and that's not even numbers. That's W's or L's, you know?
That's not bad at all.
Right?
That's not bad at all.
Right? So
I have
That's
to
pretty
say,
damn good.
I also got a chuckle. I was just like checking HLTV to see the score, and Malbs did a post-game interview, and like the headline on HLTV is, in the end, Malbs, in the end, let's say Ancient didn't happen, so we won 2-0.
see what a great mindset to have.
That's a great
That is
mindset.
a
It's
good
like,
mindset to have.
the maps we lose, they didn't happen. So, we won 2-0. Like, can that be the official score,
And pretty
please?
convincingly.
I mean, it is kind of, he has a point. They didn't really show up on Ancient, so.
Yeah, let's pretend Rio didn't happen. So in
Well,
effect,
but they've won a game.
we're the reigning champions.
Or that the last 5 years didn't happen. If it's NACS we're talking about, Jason, that's fine as well.
I would
They
love
probably
to do that.
they
One-
probably play
yeah.
against Spirit, and then Liquid probably play against Vitality with Jack standing in, and then you have Astralis versus Mouse, and you have Navi versus FaZe. So I guess Navi loss is pretty tough. They lost 13-6, 13-6 on Nuke and Mirage to Cadian, who apparently has a busted up arm somehow.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Is there anything come from that? I saw Striker's.
He just
little
said that
thing.
apparently he's hurt his arm and it'll affect the way that he would play. But they won, so I guess it didn't affect the way he would call. So.
Oh my God, bro, I can't anymore.
I just wish- I just wish
can't
it-
handle this, Chad. I can't. Like,
What-
as it,
what, man?
How many players do you think are sick right now at World Finals?
I don't know, probably 7 of them.
Let's do an over/under, baby. Like,
You mean like, they're a little
every
bit like, down with
time
the flu or whatever?
these fuckers do something to themselves where they can't be 100% for the tournament, Like, now it's an arm. Remember when fucking Config, what was he doing? Like, he had some freak accident at
Didn't
the
he
airport.
slip in the airport or something?
and broke his wrist. Like, it's how are you?
We put
How are
him.
these things? It's crazy. An NFL player doesn't get as injured on average or sick, doesn't miss as much time or isn't indisposed as much as a fucking esports player. Like, what are they doing to themselves? It's not that hard.
Maybe we set up like Janko's healthcare service, right? And you travel around the world with them, Janko, and you like kind of advise them on good and bad choices that they're making in their life.
Might have to be that. I mean, half of these teams have performance coaches as well. Why don't you start with fucking keeping the players' health, not sick?
But they're only with them.
That
at
would
work,
be a
you
good
know?
start.
They're not with
Instead
them all
of
the
fucking
time.
stretching, That just sounded really aggressive towards the
It
performance
did sound
coaches.
really aggressive.
What's wrong
yeah.
I don't think they're
Stretching,
doing a
man.
bad
Stretching's
job.
really
I
good.
think it's mostly
I
players
stretch every
like
day.
when they're at home not doing it properly, and I think a lot of it actually might be not managing stress correctly.
Well,
I saw
travel
that-
and stress are bad.
I
They don't
saw
go
that
very well together.
video from November, like about
Yeah.
I guess mental health, and where Stiko said in it that he was like purposefully making himself sick right before the season starts, so
Huh?
that then he wouldn't get sick at the worst time, like during the season, like during an
Oh, like
important
he'd go
tournament or
catch
something.
like the seasonal flu, so that he would be able to resist it or some shit.
What
yeah.
the
That's
fuck?
hardcore
as
fuck.
What's going on
That's
there,
hardcore as
bro?
fuck.
Come
which is
on
kind
now.
of, but I can relate because when I first started coaching MIBR, I was stressed as fuck. Like, I didn't really do a great job of managing all that. I was just like overworking, overstressing, putting like everything on me. And I would get sick almost after every tournament, like for a day or two, because my body was like pumping through the tournament. Then when it was over, it was just this crash like of everything, adrenaline, whatnot. All the hormones. Then I guess my immune system just like, disappeared there. I would get sick. I would be sick for like a couple of days back home. and then I would be fine again. But that was 100% due to stress and not handling it correctly. So I think that's like what these players also sometimes need to be aware of, is like, you know, if you stress your body a lot, you're going to be more prone to getting sick, and that's why you need to do a better job of managing.
It's tough. Like, I understand what you're saying, but for, I reckon, kids in their early 20s who come into popularity, and for the guys in the big teams, like money in a highly competitive environment, obviously there's some of them that are pretty safe. Like, worst case, they can always find another team. There's probably an elite group of players. We could blow that out to like 25 to 30 players, I reckon, that, you know, down the run could always make into some type of a team. But outside of that, it's like, I imagine it is very stressful. I don't know. It would be just tough to manage, I think. Like, with maybe, I mean, lately not so bad. 2019 was pretty crazy though.
Well, I think next year is going to be pretty nuts for it. I mean, I think we're going to do fine in our capacity, but I mean, also think about our own experience, and then just kind of draw the similarities to a player. Is like these players who are joining teams and they're like 19, 20 to like 25, like you're going to be stressed about the performance to a certain extent, but you're not going to feel the stress from the fucking travel. You're not going to feel the stress from, you're just excited to be playing Counter-Strike for a living. You're going to be practicing in a situation where you would have been playing FPL with a bunch of randoms anyways. You're going to be flying around the country, staying in team houses, getting paid a good salary. That stress isn't going to build up the same way it didn't build up for us from 2015, 2016 to 2019, 2020. And then you have the older players now, like Rain, who's being very vocal about coming out and say the mental game next year is going to be the most important thing to manage. Stress is going to be a big issue. Calendar is going to be a big issue. And you got the younger guys who are probably sat there and be just sitting there and being like, what a bunch of fucking pussies. Like, we're playing Counter-Strike. It's not that big of a deal. And then they get to that age and they're like, oh, no shit. Like, they were trying to kind of tell us something. So you're younger and you just have that, you have that ability to kind of avoid as much stress, which is probably also why nothing's ever going to be done about it.
But do you think, because this always makes my like little blinkers go off when we start edging into this type of the topic, right? Like, I think that the motivation for people or the priorities in life like change. You know, some people stay completely laser focused to the task at hand, and those are the freaks that we tend to have, and those are the people who tend to push those barriers, right? Some people are able to manage it all. Some people need to be all in, or they just can't produce to the level, you know, that is necessary of them to be at that top point. Do you think though, like, you know, because there is I wouldn't call it a cry, right? But there is like a sentiment of, you know, like things need to be not so oversaturated and more balanced and everything. Then it's just like a self-preservationist mindset, right? Or should this space be, you know, if you're young enough and you're hungry enough and you're willing to compete all the time, then you should have that opportunity, right? Because that opportunity was afforded to a generation once upon a time.
I mean, I personally don't care. I think it's fine if everyone has the opportunity to grind as hard as they want. But I think, you know, I always had the realization that I wasn't going to be able to grind the way I did when I was 27 years old, when I was 37 years old. You know, like I always had that understanding. And as long as you have that knowledge that it's going to come at some point and you can work it towards the future, do whatever the fuck you want. Make whatever decisions you want. I'm fine with it. I mean, I would like this scene to be structured out of the gate a little bit better. But if the opportunity is going to be there to grind, go fucking crazy. Like,
yeah, that's the problem. Like, next year is not going to be healthy for anyone. But teams are different. Players are different, right? You know, for some teams, going to every single tournament and playing, they're going to thrive off. You guys remember SK in 2017 and the Brazilians? Like, they would play the most tournaments out of anyone, and they would go to some small tournaments.
Yeah.
Sort of, because that was their way of ramping up into the season, and they were fine with it. They didn't have a problem and their base was in NA, and they would go to some tournament in, you know, Belarus or I don't know, in Russia, or, you know, they would go to EU to some 8-team tournament, nothing too crazy, just to play and get some reps in, and then one more tournament, and then Cologne would be around the corner, or Major. Then you had Astralis on the other hand, who was already skipping tournaments at that time and giving more time to players to be at home and rest and recuperate.
The skipping backfired.
To some extent, yeah. So I guess it depends, like, who benefits from what. I'd play as much as possible up until the point where it starts having diminishing returns, right? If your players can't handle it physically to some extent, and also if your game is starting to suffer, right? Because you don't have enough time to refresh your game, to switch things up, right? To be up to date with the meta, perhaps. That's what you need to pay attention to. So as long as you're able to manage that, play as many tournaments as possible, because first of all, it's fun. Like competing is fun. That's what you do it for. You don't play CS to practice and play scrims. You do it to be on LAN, play official, and fuck people up, right? Prove you're better. And also, if you're a good team, or a good player, that's not going to last forever. These windows are not super long, so
Capitalize on that shit.
Yeah, you have to capitalize on that shit. Strike the iron while it's hot, or I think there's another way of saying it. I just can't remember.
Fuck the donkey when it's stuck in the mud.
What the fuck, Jason?
That's a crazy saying, Jason.
The fuck are you talking about?
But I think that is kind of the key, right? I think that we're all in alignment.
You are up for a long time, aren't you?
Not about,
Did you
not
feed
about
the baby
donkeys, man.
mushrooms?
I don't even feel bad about that one. I love that saying. That saying's great.
What are we looking at time wise? I know we haven't been going for crazy long, but I haven't heard regarding our 5:30. So I guess we're on hold for that one.
On hold.
On hold for that one. But I'll keep everybody updated.
I mean, let's just go as long as we got something we want to talk about in Counter-Strike. Is there anything else we want to talk about in Counter-Strike?
There was obviously the update, which has affected some jump throws.
Yeah, Blast is not using them.
Yeah, which is nice. I don't know if Valve will change the jump height situation or not. They still have to wait and see what happens there. Otherwise, people just have to learn new lineups. That's essentially the long and the short of it, which is short-term very annoying, and long-term even more annoying if that continues to change.
Yeah,
but,
only problem is in the short term there's an RMR.
Yeah, but right, there's plenty of time for people to be able to get all that sorted, right? It's the Asian ones first. There's no Asian teams at this event. That starts in 12 days. Then after that is the Americas. So the only team they're affected out of this is Liquid, and they're going to stay in Singapore after the event. So I'll tell you this much, Jason. They got more than enough time to practice nades because there ain't going to be any fucking actual teams to play.
They ain't going to be jet lagged.
Well, that's a positive. I don't know, where the jet lag excuse was coming into play for anybody anyway.
I don't think it's worth it.
No, I don't think it's worth it. I think they should have gone back.
Unless there's multiple teams staying or anything along those lines. But even then, that's like 1 or 2 days of scrims.
Yeah.
It's not just the scrims. It's the deathmatch and all that stuff, the pugs.
Yeah.
It's just really bad. I remember, all these Dubai tournaments, teams would always complain, that they don't have anyone to practice. I remember Groove talking about it with Cloud9 when they were there for something where they played 2 back-to-back, something along those lines, and had to spend a lot of time there, and it just wasn't worth it. They couldn't get any quality practice, and the only thing you can do really is theory. And so I don't know I don't think that's going to be great for the confidence of players. Obviously, they're going to try to get ahead of it and sort of, discuss it and be aware of it. But I'm not really a fan of that decision.
And you were worried about Liquid, Jason. You got to be more worried now, man.
No, I actually don't mind. I actually don't mind the decision. I actually don't mind them sticking around in Singapore. I'm with you. There's all those negatives that you just mentioned are very real and very true. But
Real
I think
and true, Janko. Real and true.
I think giving yourself
that's what I am, Chad. I'm real and I'm true. I'm giving
yourself some time to just kind of, as you said, do philosophy and talk things over. I think they have a lot they probably want to go over and fix and talk about maps, and then maybe, I don't know, if they get eliminated, they've got a couple days of scrims before teams leave. You get to relax, you get to rest.
Okay. You're painting a different picture, Jason. Painting a whole different complexion.
And I think as long as when teams start arriving for the Asia RMR, you start hitting it pretty fucking hard, I think you should be okay. If you're able to have a productive kind of philosophical boot camp away from hardcore practice.
A philosophical boot camp. Maybe I should open the next spot in fucking Athens, Jason.
Yeah, you should, man. That'd be nice.
I think the only
you can come and be a guest lecturer with your
throw a big ass beard on. Yeah.
The bigger concern I have is probably about the individual output, right? Because once you get a week worth of just playing against people who don't have hands, is probably not what. But they're not throwing them. Yeah, so I think that's what they need to just basically snuff. But they're all experienced players who should understand the work ethic necessary. And going straight into the RMR, the intensity's there, right? Like then it's not just another game. Even though I know like all of their processes and everything is to kind of push them in that way. The intensity of playing the RMRs is going to be quite high. So the best team there. You're thinking, how can they fucking lose? I've jinxed them now, haven't I?
They'll find a fucking way if I
jinxed them
know
now.
if I know Liquid.
Well, look at the field. Liquid, Fury, Complexity,
I know, I
Pain,
was looking at
MIBR,
this
M80,
yesterday.
Imperial, 9Z, Red Canids, Wildcard, Bastia, Legacy, Nouns, Boss, Case, Crew. And then the top, 7 make it?
Yeah.
So I don't get top 7 out of all those teams, Joseph. Just fucking pack it up, mate.
Yeah, that's true. But crazier fucking things have happened, haven't
I know,
they?
but pack them up, Jason. Start packing them up, mate.
Just put them in the box now. I'll tell you what,
Put them on the shelf for Christmas.
if Wonderful keeps having a games like he had today, there might be a world where they don't actually make it. There
You
might
mean
actually
Ultimate?
be a world. Yeah.
No, you said wonderful, Jason. We've lost you, man.
Fuck, man. Today.
It's all right, Jason. You know,
They're close to synonyms, aren't they?
those
I-
old fashions hit harder with time. You know.
What's
That's
going
all
on, Jason? What's up, man?
I didn't even drink last night. I don't know.
Are you okay, man?
Yeah, wine and beer doesn't count in Jason's.
That's your
World.
rule. That was your rule in Serbia on like day 4. Was
What
wine, beer, and
the
rakia
hell?
don't count.
The operating word here is was. Not anymore.
Let's change
Was.
that. Change that
It's
thinking
changed.
process.
It's changed. You know what's
Um,
cool? I'm going to. You know what's cool? I'm going to Berlin for the weekend. That's not the point. I'm going for this Thunderpick World
Yeah,
Championship.
The Mongols
For
are
the
there.
land finals, it's 4 teams. You know what I love about it the most?
The-
The prize pool total is $770,000.
Okay.
First place is $500,000.
Beautiful.
First place is 500K.
That's beautiful.
Second place is 150. There's a
Oh.
third place match. The third place is 70, and the fourth place is 50.
All
so
right.
everyone gets something,
Everyone gets a
and
little
it's
something,
important
something.
because there was a whole online stage. So even if you're fourth, you're entitled to a good chunk of change. But the number one gets 500K, and the teams attending are Heroic, Mongols, 3D Max, and OG. Yes, OG
Let's go, OG.
beat some teams and qualified for something. So
Dude,
I
that's
like-
an
I like what
insane
OG
prize
be doing.
pool for these teams.
And I don't know how it works because this is LAN, but the majority of it was online. So does it count? If you win 500K, does it count as winning 500K on LAN?
I'm pretty
Or
sure.
So it's a lot. I mean, for either, like, let's say,
Be good
okay,
for the
obviously,
Mongols.
heroic or the Mongols would mean a lot for them. Like Mongols, it could potentially propel them into, top 8 in Valve rankings for next year, depending on how they do at the major, and they could all of a sudden be invited to every single thing. Heroic, same stuff. For OG and 3D Max, it's more like, especially for OG, like if they somehow can pull off an upset win and it's like a best of 3 and the final is best of 5, they can be invited to some tournaments at the very least, right? Which has not been the case for them for a while now, especially when the loss of partner leagues and all of that stuff. So for these teams, like, this is their Super Bowl in a way.
Yeah, no,
Potentially.
it has big ramifications for sure. On the OG one, I like how they've aggressively just been trying to get new players. Like, whether the quality of the player is there or not, I don't know. But I like the fact that they've moved away from using just, like, old guys.
Recycled like the
yeah.
players that no team wants.
I'm really curious to
All
see
the names
Buzz.
are pretty new.
I
You
want to see
reckon?
Buzz. I think he was doing good by
He
the
wasn't
time.
doing poorly, yeah.
Towards the end of Astralis, right? I think it was very tough for Astralis to remove him because he wasn't doing poorly, but they just saw more potential in Stair. And I can understand that as well. If anything, I was a little bit surprised Buzz didn't land on like a better lineup in the meanwhile. So this will be a good opportunity for him to sort of showcase his skills and potentially, make a case for a better team picking him up. Who knows?
Yeah. I've always been quite critical of the OG project, so this is one
Yeah,
of the
it's
first
starting
times
a
for
new
in
good
a long
reason.
time.
They've just been their scouting department, let's say, hasn't had a great track record.
I think it fits the bill. I know that it means you sometimes get these teams turn into farm teams, but I still would prefer to be known as a team that's trying to bring up new talent, right? And
But
trying
you
to
know,
fund
OG
those
isn't
groups.
some Mickey Mouse organization.
No,
I mean,
no.
You
but
know,
I
in
think that's
Dota
why
they're
there was the
massive.
disappointment. You know.
So it's like if they had a good team, I mean, they could. I feel like pay them enough where they could keep the players if they became, you know, like they couldn't
oh, I see what you're
wouldn't just
saying.
be getting poached, right?
Yeah.
Like, but they just don't see
But that doesn't exist.
the
with
point.
current
Yeah, that doesn't
rosters.
exist right now. So it's like whatever.
Yeah.
Saw won DreamHack, fucking easy.
Yeah, over bait. And it's kind of strange that Saw, I think, like I was expecting Saw to start going down the drain now. Same kind of thing as what happened to Movistar Riders when Sampaias left, right? Things started to go wrong for them at that point. But they just replaced Aras with that Agil guy who used to play with the FTW core, which is where Aras Story and that fucking other bloke are from.
You jerks.
That's the guy.
That other bloke.
That other bloke. I forgot his
Yeah,
name.
that fucking dude.
That other guy. But the fact that they get it done like that, and especially, I think like Striker was saying Roman was playing pretty good throughout the event, which, you know, it's not usual for an old boy like Roman, you know?
Yeah, and Mutiris in the final was really good.
The big tiss.
Yeah, I think it just they have Golden as a coach, which
Yeah.
is, and I saw the Roman interview, and he was really praising him a lot, even for, you know, he's only been with them for a short amount of time, and also you can tell, like, we were speculating about this Saw situation with Aras Dos and everything, and he even says, Roman in the interview is like, I don't think, you know, from Aras Dos' side, like, everything was good in terms of like how he handled whatever or whatever he did, and that's why they just decided to, you know, pull the plug, and lo and behold, they just go and win a tournament straight out the gates with, you know, obviously still need more time with the new player, but good first sign, good first step.
Yeah, I think that the confidence for them is going to be big now. Like, they can actually use that. Whereas I thought it was going to go the other way. I thought that we were just going to see them, because they're in the pretty tough RMR group, I'm pretty sure. They are in Group A. Are they in Group A?
Of the RMR?
Or are they in Group B? I'm just having a look right now. I think Group A is the harder of the two groups. Navi,
They're in
Vitality, and
A.
Mouseface.
They're an A. Yep.
Yeah, and that's okay. Well, it's going to be quite necessary. I think that's. Is it the tougher of the two groups? Just looking at that now, it didn't slap me in the face like it did when I saw it the first time. Let me have a secondary look here. Group B is G2 Spirit, Eternal Fire, VP, Heroic, Astralis. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, Group A.
Hey, it's
Yeah,
harder.
Group A's harder.
A is harder.
Yeah.
A is harder. Yeah, all right. Well, I'm kind of out of juice, Jason. I don't know, man.
I'm all good.
Yeah, I think
I'm
we're
out of
good.
juice as well. There's no juice to be found. There's nothing to squeeze.
Any thoughts about World Finals from this point on?
I'm going.
I'd like to catch some of it, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah, it's probably the worst, like, for you, time zone wise. It's
It's pretty rough. Starts at 2 a.m. and it ends like, I don't know, 30 minutes ago.
Well, it's still going.
happen,
You could
yeah.
you could check
Still
out
going right
Vitality
now?
versus Spirit. It's going. It might go to map 3, probably not, but you could still
Okay.
catch it. But yeah, I'm going to Sweden tomorrow, and then I'm going to be co-streaming some of the games for Friday and Saturday.
World Finals?
Yeah, I'm going to
Ooh.
something called the Red Bull Giveaway, and it's in Sweden. And it's at a resort spa type hotel, and there's like gaming PCs
Oh, I know what this is. I think this is with the Black Molly guys, right?
there. Yeah, the BME.
Yeah, yeah.
Because Prof asked me about like going here and doing some stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess we could, and like we could do this because they've shown me there's a cinema style setup. And I must have agreed to something at some point in the year. And then like a month and a half ago, he's like, oh yeah,
It's
like,
is he ready
yeah.
to go?
Then the
Here's your
announcement
flight.
came out about it and stuff, and I was like, "Fuck!" Like, oh shit, we're going to that thing, aren't we? So that's
It's
what
like
my weekend has.
it's like a little like mini DreamHack Open at like an all-inclusive resort, essentially. Like what it is. It's like a
Sounds
little
pretty sick.
gaming getaway for like the 30-plus-year-old who have like
I'll fit
career
right
and
in.
job. Yeah, it's like it's not like the old school pay for the weekend ticket and split a room with 8 people and don't shower ever. It's like a real legit situation. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, well, we'll see how she goes. All right.
Cool.
Goodbye, everybody.
Stopping.
See ya.